Hi there, it's Tommy here, and I want to just talk a wee bit about the Syria crisis. And I'm going to bring up my screen. I just need to click the internet, obviously. And they're actually saying this could be the brink of World War III. Now, I don't know if that's an overestimate or not, but it's certainly worrying. And I can see that Britain's parliaments are, kind of like keeping away from the war itself. There's a split. I think it was 13 difference in the votes, and that got a no vote against the British government, which is Cameron's government. Well, he's the leader of the government of the Conservative Party. It's really tense right now if you look at it all around the world, economically, and this tension of territorial, just kind of war, people falling over each other and so on. This is a really crucial time, I think, in our human development here, if we're actually getting to a stage where this is World War III coming, or is it a stage where we actually look at massive peace for a change? Because there is opening there for us to actually, Britain is us, right? For us as Britain, and if you are from America and other countries listening to this, you'll have your own interpretation of what your country does. But I can only talk for Britain because I live there, and I think Britain's got a chance to actually go and talk to the Syrian government if the Syrian government hasn't chemically poisoned their citizens. Because, if they haven't done that and it is terrorism that's done that, then surely, I know I don't want to start a sentence with surely here, but I'm going to say surely there's an opening there to actually work with another government who isn't to our kind of standards as a Western type society, but is somebody who we couldn't actually deal with. Remember Assad said when Obama came to power two terms ago, when he first came to power, and they asked him, who would you deal with Obama? Would you talk to Obama? And he said yes. So there is something there. He is actually willing to talk to somebody in the West. But now it's got so tense all these years later, 5 years later or so, that we're at a stage now we're going to go to war with them. Thankfully Britain said no at the moment. I don't know if it's the best for like world police type thing where we're actually policing the world with America, the special relationship and all that. I don't know if it's a good thing that we don't go in there, but we can't afford it. And if our economy is just starting to grow, I'm not going to economy speeches here, but if our economy is starting to grow away, I think it was 1.2 or 3%, whatever it's going to be this year, then we maybe should stick with that, because we are starting now to get a bit of growth in Britain. America's had a wee bit of growth, not too much. China's a wee bit of growth, and all these other countries. We should stick and go with the recovery and concentrate on our own country and get ourselves on our feet, because it's 50 billion is saying in the news for that last war in Iraq, which I think probably there's still bits of it going. So we've got to be very cautious, and our government's making that cautious move because part of the parliament's saying we don't want to go in, and the vote is against the government's wishes of going in and joining up with America, which could be a godsend in itself, that the fact we haven't been in there and we are not going to take military action on Syria. Now bear in mind that they've got these chemical weapons and goodness knows what else. Who knows what the range of these things are. If they don't get us, they'll get another country, so we maybe should take a step back for that reason too. So no war at the moment, but the brink of World War III, is it? Because France just says to America that we'll help you, we're going to back you up regardless of the UK situation. Now where does that leave us as a world? If we are, as I kind of started up with, if we are going to this kind of world policing type thing with America, special relationship, and we talked about growth and that here obviously and stuff, then, and we're not going in it now, then where does that leave us? Does it leave us outside a war if it started? It's quite interesting, and I'm just going to go into the news part of it. BBC is usually a good source for that. It's got good references and that to it as well, and usually report quite accurately because they want to get the information across. But I do notice that it's more subtle now. There's more like the newspapers and the BBC and all these other channels that have got news type programmes have been more subtle towards how they approach this compared to the Iraq war. And I watched David Davis, who was the FA chief executive at one time. Very intelligent man. I actually like him. He's actually very good in what he says, and he's basically says that it's quite good that we've no kind of in the now and stuff like that, but at the same time we have to be seen to be doing something and whatever else. So we'll see where this goes anyway. Let's have a look at the news. They're saying PM calls for robust action on Syria. A robust response to the alleged use of chemical weapons in Syria is needed despite UK military action being ruled out, said the Prime Minister. Okay, so let's just click that. And this is all around the world. This is starting to move around the world. And the whole aspect of will we go to war, won't we go to war is getting closer, because I think America or France, whatever it was actually talking about actually making that strike. Probably America more so in the next few days, making a strike. So it's quite interesting. Right, Jeremy Bowen's been in the Middle East. He's obviously the BBC correspondent there in Damascus, and he's been going about giving kind of updates on the weapon inspectors and so on. And it's saying there the weapon inspectors this morning seem to be in two or three minds about what's going on. Now that doesn't sound good right away. Twice they left the garage of hotel where they and the foreign correspondents were staying looked as if they were ready to head out, and twice they went back in. So basically he's saying like they went out and in this hotel looking for these weapons, but like say, or maybe kind of doing tests. And he's also saying that rebels have been trying to take, well, Sir Bears were held by rebels and they were trying to go and take samples, but it's a lot of, so the rebels are stalking taking samples in different areas in the suburbs. That's what's happening there. And there's other things going on as well. There's a lot of people wounded, there's in hospital, and the regime itself has got soldiers out there and they're actually wounded as well. So there's a lot of kind of infighting and civil war stuff happening. What do you think? Do you think there's something going to happen with this Syria? Because the Arab Spring obviously took off, and it took off from, we could probably say, Iraq, Afghanistan type thing. You can get wee flashes of that, when Britain, America and so on, the kind of coalition governments and all that went in and had their time in these countries, and then these wars kind of came to a standstill. Oil price, by the way, is way up sky high, and this could affect it again, this Syria crisis, just to say that, because it is a Middle East type region. And so what's happened is you had this kind of Iraq and people removed these people from power. You then had this uprising in Egypt, and Egypt seems to be kind of the stimuli for some of it, because after Egypt uprose, you had Libya and you had other countries all uprising. This Arab Spring took off. You're now at Syria. Where does this stop? Is where it comes down to. There's so much happening. There's so many people in these countries. They're not of the same culture of like the Western countries. They have their own way of looking at things, and we might be a bit reserved in this country. We might have armies and that do go out and do things, but these people could probably buy a rocket launcher in a supermarket type thing and go and use it. And this is a problem we have, that the people are armed in these countries, whereas the people in other countries are not. So where is this going to end up? Is it Syria? I don't even know the population of Syria. I could probably check that right now. But Syria is quite a military-led country. It's led by a dictator, Assad. It's meant to be diplomatic, but it's certainly not got the same freedoms as we have in these countries here, like America, France, Europe's, and Britain's and so on. So let's look at the Syria population and see what that is, because I'm just curious, because the reason I'm curious is to see how many there is of them and how many there is of here. They're saying there's roughly 23 million people, inhabitants of Syria, and it says a bit more, but so if there's 23 million, that's quite a lot of people. Yeah, and there was quite a big bit of land as well. It's quite wide the maps and how you look at the maps. Yeah, there's quite a bit. Maybe actually it's cut up into wee pieces, but most of it is, it's all Syria. There's wee pieces at the side of it where Lebanon that is, and you've got Jordan no far, you've got Iraq, and there's various other places. So, if Iraq's right on, not far from that, Iraq's joining it. So that just maybe gives you an indication of what could be happening there at the borders. Very worrying time, I would say, and it's worth a watch in the news, because if this starts to go pear-shaped, who knows where this would go. Right, politically speaking, let's try and put a bit of political theory into it. The old Thomas Hobbes, he would say, state of nature. State of nature being life is short, British, all the rest of it. And the way to prevent that is you put a person in power. It could be a queen, it could be a monarch basically, or it could be a government, a prime minister, president, that sort of thing. And you give them your free will, and that free will then is controlled or governed by them. And you have a little bit of free will to go and do your things, which will be go and get a job, do some dinner making, watch your family, watch your TV. You have a bit of free will to do all these things that don't really put danger to other people. Yeah. So the other bits that do pose danger, like you would go and maybe hit somebody and so on, government takes all that free will and puts rules against it and says, well, we're going to create a law, and the law will be that you can't hit MD. If you do, we'll put you in jail. There you go. Easy as that. So Thomas Hobbes, really nice guy, good idea, and 16th century. So if you take his thing and apply it to the Syria thing, you can say that Assad right now, President Assad, he's pretty much the guy who's in charge. He's the one that's kind of saying, yep, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and people are just listening to him. People are scared to make that move as well against him, because they're used to kind of just following him, because of free will is in him, and his cabinet, and so on. So that's the kind of Thomas Hobbes. But John Locke would say you've got a right to protect your property. It feeds into the Americanisation part of things, where the independence, kind of constitution was kind of made up, bits of Lockean thought theory in there. So I mean, they're coming along. Like Locke and Hobbes disagreed, so you get the Americans disagreeing with the Syrians. Americans saying, listen, we like freedom, we like all these kind of liberty, give people liberty and so on, give people their own choice. You're not doing that, Syria. What you're doing is you're gassing our people when you're having freedom of speech. It's awful. You're meant to be there to stop this kind of brutishness and this kind of scarring of your nation, and that about the Hobbesian thing, like saying, we don't have to be killed anymore because it's somebody leading us, but when the leader turns on us, it's a different story. So Lockean principles is you've got a right to protect yourself, right to protect your life, right to protect your property, your family, whatever it may be, the objects you have that's important to you, things that make up your personality, your life, your world, and so on. So I mean, you basically had two countries there, maybe one taking a Lockean principle, one taking a Hobbesian principle, and you have maybe Britain coming in there as well, where how happy is the people, with a bit of Jeremy Bentham there. A bit of utilitarianism, just saying, look, people are not happy, it shouldn't be happening, you shouldn't be killing your people, you don't really have much anyway, so there's not much to protect, but the actual lives are a precious thing. So I mean, why doesn't everybody just join together and just kind of get along in the world and all that sort of thing? So they want for a bit of happiness, Britain, a bit of settlement, and it brings in a bit of general will with Rousseau as well, where let's get everybody in the same way of thinking, they can correct each other as they go along. We've got one guy does something, we tell people don't do that. Yep, it's not right. That means people don't do it. It becomes a better place to live. So I mean, Syria is obviously kind of took somewhere in Syria, or someone in Syria, or a group in Syria has took the basic steps to go and cause harm to others, i.e. government intervention. But if the government has done it, world intervention. And who is the world intervention? The supranational nations. The supranational nations, NATO. Yes, United Nations, all these people, all these countries, all these allies from the First and Second World Wars, put into a big room, round a table, and get told, you're going to keep the peace in the world. We can't have another Hitler. We can't have megalomaniacs running riot, think they can take over countries and ruling people and killing people and renaming countries and con territory their own, grabbing castles for themselves. We can't have it. We'll put a stop to it after the Second World War, and it's not going to happen again. We're not going to have a World War III. What do we need here? What's going to fix this crisis? Right, let's see. We've got Syria. Syria, a country that everybody knows nothing about. All they know is some people get killed with chemical weapons, some people get really unwell with chemical weapons. Nobody knows who done it. They might blame the government, but don't have any evidence. The Americans say there might be some evidence. David Cameron saying we can't go in because Labour Party and several other people have said no to us because we don't have any evidence. If there was evidence, we'd go in. So there's no evidence. Let's just establish that. America hasn't showed there's any evidence, and if that's the case, it takes us back to the beginning of the story, which is Assad, are you, and Assad's the president, are you the one that fired the bombs, the chemical weapons? And if you're not, can we talk to you? That's maybe where it should be. So you go from that, you shift from that thinking of we're going to attack, we need a war, all the rest of it, military action, stop this, it's crazy, to we want peace, we want to discuss things, we want diplomacy, we're happy to negotiate, we want to find out where it came from. This is where it's at. Nobody knows what path to take. The French, who knows? The French are the French. They'll do what they think's best for them. Bear in mind that they've got contracts with Britain on warships and aircraft carriers. We share the same things because we're not far apart from each other. Channel Tunnel, join us, and all the rest of it. So, the whole thing, how do we put it in more academical terms? Syria is a boiling pot. UK, America, parts of Europe are not. Why are they not? Because they're meant to be civilised. They're meant to keep order in the world to stop World War III. They're now in a situation, these countries, that Syria has put them in, to prevent World War III right now as we speak. This is why newspapers will not say too much. They'll say enough to give you the news, because we're used to getting some information about things happening in the world. They will not give you any news stories that could spark a war. The UK government want to go in and help America and other countries, and part of our parliament and most of our people are probably saying no. The evidence of that, the vote last night, 13 votes in it, it was a no, we're not going in. America on the other hand probably will go in. Obama looks as if he doesn't want to go in. The French are going with Obama, and maybe other countries will too. The whole thing could actually develop into a war, with weapons getting fired left, right and centre. Now bear in mind we haven't mentioned Russia, China, Iran, and whatever other countries out there want to back Syria up. This is why it's so fundamental that they get it right and they don't go in there like they've done with the Iraq war on speculation, i.e. we can launch WMAs in X amount of minutes. Yeah, it's just can't happen this time, and this is why there's so much caution and not a lot been said, because this could be the thing that actually sparks something. We don't want any of this on our plate. None of us want any of this. I'm sure the public don't want it, no matter what country you're in. I'm sure the governments don't want it, or if they did, they would be doing it now. So there's something holding them back, and I'm sure that the world doesn't need it in general, with the disasters we're going through already, with economies, and people dying of starvation in Africa, and different other countries, Romania, these other countries that we're at a time where maybe we should be putting our resources, our money and all sort of thing into actual curing the poverties and curing the anxiety that people have about their futures. And remember, this is coming from someone that lives in Britain, me, who knows that people in Britain don't have anything anyway. We don't have any money, we don't have any good jobs, we don't have any like good lifestyles anymore. So we could easily say we want to keep everything for ourselves, and we could go and have the war and get rid of people and all the rest of it and be really nasty. But it's funny how people, even when they don't have anything in this country and they're struggling and they're scraping to keep their life together, and it's so tough, it's funny how there's going to be a demonstration tomorrow at 12 o'clock in London, and it's going to say no war. People are actually willing to go out there and protest and say no war. And it almost goes against, it's why the argument's always had against the post-materialism type thing with Robert Inglehart, where he says about first order material needs being like, you need your house, you need your food, healthcare, education and so on, dental care, whatever it may be. I need that, and once you get that, you then think about your second order material needs, which would be like you go and protest, save the whale and do this and do that, we don't want this, and whatever it may be, fast lane, you name it. It's funny how people don't have anything right now and they're really struggling, but they're still willing to go out and protest. You could argue they're doing it so they don't end up in the worst state in what they're in already, because the country will bankrupt if they have another war. You could argue that, but there's no evidence of that. But what there is evidence of is the fact that they are willing to go out there in the streets and fight and shout, well, not fight, that's the wrong word, demonstrate for freedom, other people's freedoms are not even met. Demonstrate for no war, no fighting. Don't send our people, British people, American people, French people, whatever it may be, over to a country where they could get killed. So it's funny how a country that is struggling is willing to actually stand up and say that. And I would actually say that shows you how human this country is, and how aware we are of the actual problems, regardless of the media spins and politicians' fancy words and jargon and the stuff they don't tell us. So, well done Britain, for standing up for yourself in a way that's probably more positive than it would be going in there fighting. And Cameron is say he wants to go in and help and all the rest of it without military action. Well, that's fine, that's what we have these supranational organisations for, and that would be their job, I would say. But he's the Prime Minister, who am I to say? And who am I to vote next time for him, I suppose. Anyway, thanks for listening to me. There's not a lot on Syria we can probably talk about further, because it's still a kind of thing in motion, but certainly it's worrying, and I would definitely watch the news if I was you and keep tabs on it from time to time, because it could be something that affects us all. Thanks very much for listening. I've been Tommy, and I hope all of that or none of it either made sense or doesn't make sense. And I'll see you.